Hi guys, it's Shar. Welcome back to my channel, Craftin' Up a Storm. I'm coming to you from my crazy craft room because I'm busy making some fall projects. Today I've got some pumpkin projects for you and hopefully they inspire you to recreate one of your own. Let's get crafting. For my first project, I found this thick pumpkin sign at Dollar Tree and I'm going to paint it up. I used some mineral chalk paint on the sides and all over the back. And I did remove the paper from the front. I used some wood grain contact paper. I believe this is a roll I picked up from Temu. It's kind of a matte finish. It's really nice. I decided I wanted half the pumpkin to be painted orange, so I put tape down the middle and I used some pumpkin chalk paint. And now I have this adhesive stencil from Dollar Tree. It's just a floral pattern, and I'm going to use some dark brown acrylic paint to dab onto the side of the pumpkin. I also have this Hello Fall, and I watered down a little of that brown paint and kind of made it a little bit more of a stain for this wood piece. I wanted to add a little something around the top, so I used some floral leaves left over from a stem. Then I decided to make some of the little vines that you find at the top of the pumpkin with a little bit of floral wire. I think I made 2 little curly cues and glued that to the top as well. And then to cover the stem, I just wrapped it in twine. All the way up to the very tip, and then I burnt off all the fuzzies. I glued down my Hello Fall on the wood grain side. And even though it kind of poked off the side a little bit, I was okay with that. Let me know what you guys think of this one. This video is part of the Pumpkin Spice and Everything Nice playlist. The hosts are Amanda at 6 Kids and a Glue Gun, Katie at Lady Red Crafting, and the guest host is Stephanie at Mama Can Make It. And these ladies are some very, very talented women with tons of wonderful ideas. If you're coming over from one of their channels, welcome. If you have not yet stopped by, definitely check out their channels. They are incredibly talented crafters. And if you would like to check out the playlist, you will get a ton of pumpkin inspired fall projects. For this next project, I have this little pumpkin topiary stack in my stash. I picked it up at the 99-cent only store last year, and I have a wooden block from Dollar Tree, and I'm just gonna make a little standing topiary box for my pumpkins. I decided to decorate the block with some fall scrapbook paper, but I don't want it to just be wrapped around the block, which would be fine. It's absolutely fine just to cover my block with the scrapbook paper. It would look really cute, but I've got to do something a little bit different, and I've got to kind of antique it up a little bit. So I did cut my squares a little bit large as I was cutting out the paper, just because I'm going to, I just want a kind of an organic shape. So I'm going to go around the edges with scissors and kind of cut it away. And I don't want it to be straight sides. This isn't necessary. Later on, I did more on the edges with my paint, but this is what I started with. So I did want to go ahead and stain the corners of my wood block. I did stain the top where I'm going to glue the pumpkins. But for the sides, I knew if I was going to put the paper in the middle, I didn't need to stain the whole thing. So I ran around the edges, and then to rub it in, I just kind of pulled it toward the center. Now I'm going to glue down my paper. I did put some Mod Podge down on the entire side of the box, and now I'm just pressing that paper onto the dry Mod Podge for each side to adhere it. This makes it just reactivate and will stick that paper down really well. Now I'm going to go around the edge again with some of that antique wax. And what my goal at this point is to kind of blend the edge of that paper in. And so I'm going to kind of stipple a little bit right around the edge of that paper and go onto the paper so that it kind of blends it in and looks like that paper once was part of that block and the edges just kind of wore away. I just like a very vintage kind of vibe, antique vibe to most of my projects. Because I wanted to darken those edges just a little bit more, I did go around the very edge with some black chalk paint. Just along the very sharp edge of the block and around the corners a little bit deeper, just to really accentuate the edges and make them look even more worn toward the very edge. Once I put on some of the paint, I took a dry brush and I just pulled that paint in toward the center. That way it wasn't solid black, but it kind of rubbed the edge in so it wasn't a solid line. Now I'm going to glue my pumpkin topiary to the top of my square. And the pumpkins aren't stacked exact, which is fine. But I just want to at least get that bottom pumpkin even on each side. Once I had the pumpkins glued down, I knew I needed just a little bit more something to it. So I grabbed my Spanish moss and I decided to tuck a little bit around each of the pumpkins. I started at the bottom where I had glued the pumpkin to the block, and my hot glue was still just sticky enough that I could just kind of wrap some of that Spanish moss around and it stuck into that glue. I didn't want a lot of Spanish moss. I just wanted a very small ring around each pumpkin. So I went around with a little bit of hot glue dots kind of around each pumpkin, and I wrapped in a little of that Spanish moss. I don't show it, but I also did take some brown acrylic paint and I painted the stem at the top so that it looked a little less plastic. And I just kept adding the Spanish moss until I got kind of the look I was going for. I think it took the pumpkins into a little more old-fashioned look to match that box. This project was one of my favorites. I could make pumpkin projects just all day long. I love pumpkin decor. As you can tell from my desk, I have all my pumpkins sitting around to inspire me. I picked up these tall pumpkin shapes from Dollar Tree, and I took the glitter off and I painted them white with some ivory. Well, I painted them ivory with some ivory chalk paint. Now to the front of them, I'm gonna add some of the pumpkin color. I'm gonna crackle paint these, so I don't need the pumpkin color to be everywhere. I just want a background of that pumpkin color to peek out through the crackle cracks. So I paint the front of each of them, not all the way down to the edge, but just the front, middle. And I don't need it to be too super thick. I just want that to peek through the cracks. To the top of that pumpkin color, once it's dry, I'm going to add some glue. I did go a little overboard with the glue. I don't think you need quite this much. I do end up kind of wiping some of it away, but I wanted a really good thick crackle, so I did go on kind of heavy with that glue. I just spread it all over, and I want the crackle to be all over, so I did go from the top edge to the bottom edge with this. I did spread them apart a little bit because I didn't want to glue them together. And then I kind of go in and smooth it out, which I don't think I needed to do, but I did smooth that glue out. Now, before that glue dries, I'm going to go back over the top of it with that ivory paint again. And this is going to help make that crackle effect. That I'm going to dry the top of it, and that glue is going to dry, and as it dries, it shrinks. And so it's going to shrink and pull that top layer of ivory paint with it. So that's what's going to cause it to crack. And you'll see these cracks just kind of develop and come out, and they're really kind of cool. I didn't want it to be absolutely perfectly covered, so you'll see there are places where it's kind of smeared and then a lot of cracks come out. And I love this technique. It's so cool to watch. So I dried the whole front of each of those and let that crackle technique really come out. And once it was cooled back down and dry, and it's just nice and flat, and you would think it would be rough from that crackle, but it's not. I decided I wanted to add some polka dots. So I got some of the maize chalk paint and then a sponge dauber, and I am going to just daub on some polka dots on one of them. I don't have a rhyme or a reason. I don't want it to be a solid exact circle. I want it to be kind of a rough textured circle and imperfect. And so I just start daubing here and there. And I don't have a pattern. I'm just daubing, trying to keep them pretty much the same amount apart. I even go off the edge for some of the spots. And I just kind of add some polka dots everywhere. Now, I did the same thing on the other two pieces, and I used the light green. Is it scallion? I can't remember the color. And then pool. I decided to add some antique wax around the edge just to distress it a little bit, add some of that rough texture on the side, and then I did go over the front of it as well with that antique wax. Now, what I decided to do was wipe some of the antique wax over all of it with a paper towel, and then I took a very soft cloth and I buffed it in a bit. And then because I wanted to bring some of that color back out, I spritzed it with just a little bit of water and wiped some of that wax away and left more of the wax just along the edges. but I tried to be very gentle. I didn't want to rub away any of my polka dots that I had just put on there. So I am being very gentle as I'm rubbing this in. That added a nice antique texture to my pumpkins. So now I'm gonna glue 2 pumpkins together for the back piece. I used some of the wood super glue and some hot glue for instant hold. I glued those 2 pumpkins together in the back, and then I glued the other pumpkin to the front to create one large pumpkin piece. This is where I noticed I have 2 holes at the top. I don't need that, so I did fill one of them in with some hot glue, and then I repainted with some ivory and antique wax. The other hole I'm not worried about, it's gonna be covered up. So now I'm gonna make a rag bow for the top. And I just chose some random ribbon, and I love this kind of webby, it's this beach ribbon from Dollar Tree, but I love it for fall. And I added in some orange burlap and this burlap stringy bow ribbon I had, and then some green ribbon. And I just made a rag bow, which of course is just making layers and then pinching it in the middle. I didn't know if I wanted to pinch it or just lay it over the top, so I'm kind of trying it out. I did end up pinching it, so I cinched it with some floral wire in the middle. And I like to make sure my tails are nice and long. That way I could trim it back to wherever I want it to sit. I did dovetail the ends of the thicker ribbon. I added a little bit of that Spanish moss to the top. And then I wanted to add one of those wood filler pieces from Dollar Tree. I bought several packages last year, the little like stumps. And I realized it really wasn't an even place to glue it onto. So I added a little wood square to the back in between those 2 pumpkins in the back, and then I was able to glue it down. Now, it just wasn't quite done for me, so I decided to just do a little bit more, and I added a few strings of raffia and then a raffia bow to the front. And that just seemed to finish it off perfect for me. Let me know what you guys think of this one. Okay, I did my 3 pumpkin projects for this video, but I couldn't help. I found this pumpkin shape at Dollar Tree, and their decor this year has just been so adorable, just the way it is, and I love this pumpkin. But I thought for an extra project on this video, all we're gonna do is kind of give this pumpkin a little updated bow. Super easy. I'm just loving all the cute decor they have at Dollar Tree that works just the way it is. But I decided to give this a little bit more impact bow to it. So I took the ribbon and the leaves off. I did reposition the hanger a little bit as well too. I'm gonna reuse those leaves because I love them. They're so colorful. But I just want to reposition them a little bit. So I moved it out and down a little bit to kind of uncover that cute felt top on the pumpkin. And then I wanted the leaves to not be exactly matched on each side. So I kind of glued one facing down a little bit more. For our bow, I tried a couple of different things. I tried some leaves. I tried a couple of different things, and it just didn't seem to work. But I just wanted to make a nice kind of raggy bow, a little bit bigger bow than what was on the pumpkin to begin with. So again, I'm using this beachy, webby ribbon. I have it in dark brown and tan, and I used 3 layers and just cinched it in the middle, and I glued that down. And then to the top of it, I'm going to make a nice big raffia bow. I took several strands of raffia And I started by just tying them in a knot. That way they all stayed together and I wasn't pulling strands out. So I did a good tight knot in the middle, and then I made my bow. And I just made a regular shoelace bow with it. I made a loop on one side, and I wrapped around and tucked through the other side. And I just didn't tighten it until I had all the strands kind of where I wanted it to go. I slowly tightened it little by little, straightening it out and getting it even. And that's how I made my raffia bow. And I thought this bow had a bit more of an impact than the other bow did, and it just added a little bit more to the top of the pumpkin. And that's all I did for this one. You could do so many different things. You could use different leaves. You could add floral to the top. But the pumpkin itself was just so cute. I thought this was just a really great, easy project. Let me know what you guys think of this one. Also, let me know if you've really been enjoying the Dollar Tree decor this year. Here is a look at all of my crafts together. Let me know which one was your favorite down in the comment section. And I hope that you give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel. I enjoy bringing you all these fall projects and many more projects to come. Here is another video you might enjoy.